One thing I always say about pageantry, in fact, is it's a pressure cooker out there. You put together with another 15 to 20 girls, or sometimes 90 girls, depending on the size of the pageant, and you're all put together for about anywhere between 20 to 45 days. There are pageants I've been in which don't have any contact with the outside world. You can't talk to your friends, your family. You're in prison. And beyond that, you are working 14 to 16-hour days, because that's how it is. You're up at 5 in the morning, you're sleeping at 12, 1. By the end of the pageant, you're usually very sleep deprived, you're tired, you're exhausted. And all that really prepares you. Because that being in that kind of an environment is horrible. But later on, when you have to put yourself through that, because you're trying to do something that you want to do, you find that you now have the strength, you have the discipline. Ultimately, to survive in that, to bring the best out of that, you have to know that every little bit of you, whether it's good parts of you, whether it's bad parts of you, parts that you like, parts that you don't like, everything is going to come out and is going to get thrown in your face. Not necessarily by someone else, mostly by circumstances.
Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Anvita Sudarshan. She's been all over the place, so let's just say literally and metaphorically, from having grown up in 3 continents, 5 countries and 7 cities. Okay, you heard me right. 3 continents, 5 countries and 7 cities, to editing Geo Junior at the age of 14. Were you allowed? We're going to get down to that. Working at Tinkle and participating and winning a few too in the process in a number of beauty pageants, from Femina Miss India to Miss India Worldwide, her experiences in the latter led to her first book, Beauty Queen, Pathway to Pageantry, which can best be described as a one-stop source book on everything you've ever wanted to know about pageantry. So she also now runs an organic farm and a bookshop in Mysore, while attempting to pen down a few written words. Oh my God, Anvita. Welcome. I'm seeing you after really long, and this is amazing. Please tell me all about the journey from modeling to filmmaking and your early experiences in pageantry. How did it shape your career choices?
Well, how does anything in your early life really shape your career choices? It makes you who you are, right? One thing I always say about pageantry, in fact, is it's a pressure cooker out there. You put together with another 15 to 20 girls, or sometimes 90 girls, depending on the size of the pageant, whether it's a national pageant, whether it's an international pageant. And you're all put together for about anywhere between 20 to 45 days. There are pageants I've been in which don't have any contact with the outside world. You can't talk to your friends, your family. You're in prison, except that you're in a pretty luxurious prison, because you're in a 5-star or a 7-star. And beyond that, you are working 14 to 16-hour days, because that's how it is. You're up at 5 in the morning, you're sleeping at 12, 1, and that is how the schedule is. By the end of the pageant, you're usually very sleep deprived, you're tired, you're exhausted, and all that really prepares you. Because that being in that kind of an environment is horrible when you're in it, but later on, when you have to put yourself through that, because you're trying to do something that you want to do, you find that you now have the strength, you have the discipline. You're able to break things down and prioritize and get it done the way you need to do it. And that's the same thing with filmmaking again. Filmmaking's a pressure cooker. You're strapped for budget, so you're all put together again for a good 90 days, 14 to 16 hours, and you have to get a brilliant project at the end of it. These are brilliant training schools for anything you want to do, to be very honest. So how did it affect career choices? These were the career choices. They didn't necessarily affect any career choices. They just helped build a work ethic.
Did you face any restrictions from your family, or people at large, from your friends, while pursuing these pageants and later filmmaking? Because I was just talking, to Taha, and he's been so successful with Hira Mandi, and he was saying that he doesn't have too many friends because people kind of don't understand the kind of rigor that one has to go through. So, can you just share a little bit about your journey?
Well, luckily speaking, in that sense, I'm an introvert. I've never had that many friends. So losing friends has not been part of it. And on the other hand, in fact, being in both industries are such extroverted industries. You have to get out there. You have to network. That has been the restriction for me. It's been on the other end. But that's just because of the person I am, really. And restrictions from society, etc. I don't really think we live in that world actively nowadays. People are open to various other career choices. Everyone has their opinion, of course. And you'll hear 1,000 opinions about anything that you do. Even if you're going into the most conventional career choice that you can make possibly, you will still have 1,000 opinions. And that's the way we humans are built. So I wouldn't call that a restriction necessarily. So it's been good. I've been also lucky to have a support system that's very important, especially in the first few days. You move to a place like Mumbai. You're 18, you're 19, and you don't know anyone. And at that age, you've just moved because you want to do something. You've not thought about anything else beyond that. It's the kind of courage that that age gives you. I don't think I would be able to do something like that today, for example. I would think 10 times about taking that kind of a step. But back then, you have that blind courage at that age. And you don't realize that fearlessness, exactly. You don't realize that it's going to take time before you actually make something of that. And while you do that, you're going to be alone. You're not going to have anyone else around you while you do that. You have to make new friends. You have to build a whole different world for yourself. And it's very useful to have a support system. It's very useful to be able to call someone at the end of the day and say, okay, this is where I'm at and I don't know what I'm doing. I just have to carry on again tomorrow. So that is lucky. I wouldn't call that a restriction.
So you have won titles like Miss India Kuwait and Miss India Worldwide, which are really both incredible. So can you share a memorable moment, from your pageantry days?
It's, it's very hard to choose that. It's, you have every pageant that I've been, has been 15 days or 20 days or however long the period is of continuous memorable moments. And that sounds very cliched. I realize that. Because why I'm saying that is everything is on such a fast forward. You're trying to do what you need to do, ideally in 6 months or a year, in 15 to 20 days. And that leads to people sticking up for each other in very unexpected ways. You tend to band together. And again, very cliched, extremely cliched, but that's how it is. You hear all these stories of pageants being extremely competitive, which they are, and people trying to pull each other down, etc. And I've not seen that as much. Maybe I've just been lucky, but I have not seen that. I celebrated my 21st birthday at a pageant, in fact. And I had, now this sounds extremely, it sounds a bit different when you speak it out in real life, but pageantry is not real life. So on the night, you're not allowed to have cakes, chocolates, or anything of that sort. You're on a strict diet, right? When you're in a pageant. And your 21st birthday, you have no one else around you. You don't have your family around you. And suddenly you have all these contestants sneaking in bits of chocolates and cakes that they smuggle the hotel staff to bring in. That means a lot. That's a bonding moment. That's something you remember for the rest of your life. These people really helped you get through something. It is. The other person could get into a whole lot of trouble for that, which doesn't sound like much when you're out of the pageant, but when you're in that is your life. So it's really something. Another story is, so I was in Miss India Worldwide, and this was the final day, and we were the top 5 contestants. We were, I remember there was Australia, and I was representing Kuwait. And there was Suriname, there was UK, and yes, Guyana. So we're all waiting for the final question, the common question. And this was done in the old-fashioned way where you would have to write down each answer. You don't go into a soundless booth or anything of that sort. You write down the answer. There's a carbon sheet under your piece of paper, and that's taken to the judges. Now, it so happened that Australia and I looked pretty alike. We looked like twins. It was uncanny, but I have seen photos of her online and wondered when was I over there? So it's absolutely uncanny. We looked like twins, and then we wrote down our answers, and she got to speak first, mainly because she was on my right and they were going in a certain direction. And her answer was almost word for word exactly the same as mine. We look
Lord.
alike, we look alike, we were speaking alike, and at that moment it was
Thinking
pretty
alike.
obvious. Thinking alike, exactly. So it was something. And we did both become runners up. So, and it was pretty obvious at that moment that the two of us would be runners up because our answers was just so similar. So yeah, it's a lifetime of memories. It's a lifetime of experience.
Your book, Beauty Queen, The Pathway to Pageantry, is celebrated for its comprehensive approach to pageantry. What inspired you to write that?
So I was, again, this was written right after I won that pageant, Miss India Worldwide. And while I was preparing for all these pageants, I was part of Miss India Universe, I was part of Miss India Worldwide. While I was preparing for those, the main thing that I found was there was such a lack of material online or offline back then on how to go about it. You have some very technical material out there. For example, if you want to figure out how to walk on the ramp, you have a lot of material out there and you can perfect your walk. But nothing really tells you how to deal with a pageant environment in itself and how to holistically build yourself up and represent yourself the best that you can. Now, the thing that most of us don't look at pageants and see about pageants is that it's a very interesting business model. What a pageant is looking for ultimately is not a winner. They're looking for a brand ambassador. And the brand ambassador is the brand for the year, for the entire year. So when a winner is being chosen, they're not being chosen because they're the best looking in the room. That way, the term beauty pageant is a complete misnomer. It doesn't match. They're looking for someone who can carry the brand forward. They're looking for someone who can represent the brand internationally and nationally, of course. And they're looking for someone who can hold their own, be at the forefront, be the face of the brand, while being the brand themselves. For something like Maybelline or something, if you have a brand ambassador, the brand ambassador is different from the brand. You're just the face of the brand. Here you are the brand, and you have to embody the brand for an entire year. And usually they're looking for someone in their early 20s, and that's not really easy to do. So that kind of preparedness, no one really prepares you for. I've been to a bunch of trainers, and all I had learned is how to walk on the ramp, and I'd gotten a bunch of gym memberships. I finally figured out how to run in heels, but there was nothing that would help me be at the forefront and represent both the brand and myself, while being honest and true to both. So I write, that's what I do, that's what I've always been good at. So I decided to write about it based on my own experiences and based on a lot of research, 6 months of watching pageants back to back on YouTube, analyzing how each brand has developed, how each pageant has developed. And that is the book.
How amazing. So can you just share some insights, from the book that many of the beauty, contestants might find very, very valuable, that they may not get these tips that, you could share actually with our listeners?
The main thing is, again, like I said, a pageant is a pressure cooker. You will have every
God, sounds
part of
scary.
yourself.
Anvita.
It's fun. It is fun, but it is what it is ultimately. And but ultimately, to survive in that, to bring the best out of that, you have to know that every little bit of you, whether it's good parts of you, whether it's bad parts of you, parts that you like, parts that you don't like, everything is going to come out and is going to get thrown in your face. Not necessarily by someone else, mostly by circumstances. If you are someone who gets frustrated very easily, that is going to happen. If you are someone who breaks down very easily, that is going to happen. Just because you're all competing for the same thing. And it's not unseen faces, it's not unnamed faces that you're competing with. You're with each other. You're each other's support system, but at the end of the day, only one can win. So, only thing you can do is understand yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Physically, mentally, holistically, what are you good at? What are you not good at? If you spend time understanding these things, the chances are you won't be surprised when it finally does come out over there and you know how to deal with it. It could be something as simple as when I was in Femina, for example, we were having a very prominent skin doctor take a look at our skin. And she looked at my face and she told me that, you have a little bump on your nose over here. But don't worry, if you win, we can take care of that before you go to the international pageant. I had never seen this bump on my nose ever before. It throws you off. Everyone had, in fact, told me that I have a pretty straight nose. And these are things that feel like they don't matter, but they do. Every little thing in that moment, when you look at that face in the mirror again the next day, you don't see anything else. You see the bump. And that affects things. Now, it's not about whether you should be affected by that bump on the nose or whether you should not be affected by that bump on the nose. It's not about that. Ultimately, what your nose is you. Ultimately, what you decide to do with your nose is entirely your thing. But you have to know it so that if someone brings it out or if a circumstance brings it out in front of you, you know that it's not going to unnerve you in that moment. You know where to focus. You know that your focus should be elsewhere at that point. Because at that point, there's nothing you can do about it. Even if you want to, whether you want to do something about it, whether you don't want to do something about it is another thing. But at that point, your focus has to be elsewhere. You have to move beyond such things.
My God, Anvita, the girls are so young. How would they have that
They are.
maturity? My heart is breaking to listen to the fact that, one has to deal with all of this. Like, it's taken me to be in my 50s to really know now that, even if somebody says
But
that you've got something wrong about you, you hear about it, you feel bad, but you carry on. But at 18, one is so vulnerable because
true.
women are all the time pegged on how they look. So, but I'm sure, a lot of our listeners would want to know from you some interesting tips on healthy lifestyle of nutrition and fitness. Do share with us what is it that you do? And, maybe all of us can also take a few cues from you.
I'm not a nutritionist. I am not a fitness expert. In fact, my own fitness has never been up to the pageant mark. Again, pageantry has evolved a lot over the years. And today it might be
It has,
because we are a
sure.
different society. But back then, 10 years ago, it was nowhere near the mark. So, but ultimately, pageantry is not about your nutrition and fitness. Because when you are there, all that anyone's going to care about is how you look on stage. Because it's too late to do anything about your nutrition or fitness. There is nothing you can do in 15 to 20 days. You can only mask things. You can only bring out your best or hide your worst or whatever your coping mechanism is at that point. But that said, if anyone is planning to participate in the pageant industry or in any pageant, the idea is not exactly to have the pageant perfect figure, because ultimately, even the pageants insist for that, it's not always the perfect figure that has won. That is, you make a huge hullabaloo out of it, yes. But if you look at history, it's always been the person who has been the most confident of themselves and who has been able to stand up in a crowd and stand out prominently. And for that, yes, you do need nutrition and fitness. Because if you don't feel good within your body, you will never project that.
Absolutely.
The role
Absolutely.
that nutrition and fitness play is in keeping you healthy, keeping you sane, and enabling you to perform your best on stage that day. If you have that, half the battle is won. The rest, there are people to help you out with that. There are plenty of fitness experts and nutritionists who can help you get the best figure out there. So that's superfluous compared to that.
The rest is just to get cooked inside the pressure cooker on slow boil, I think. So let's talk
Exactly.
a bit about your studying in New York in the Film Academy influenced your filmmaking style and career path. That must have been so exciting, Anvita, because I love films, and tell me a little about the New York Film Academy.
was a whole different world, to be honest. And that was, see, from the beginning, the reason even when I was doing modeling and pageantry, ultimately, I knew that I wanted to, these are all ways of storytelling. And I wanted to explore how to do it I've always been good with words, but I didn't know how to do it visually. And I wanted to explore that. And that's how filmmaking happened. But it's being in New York, it wasn't filmmaking that was a different world. Because now I was already in front of the camera and it was just a matter of going back. It's still the same world. But it was being in an institute, being in a different country. I had not gone to college in that sense till then. I did my bachelor's through distance education because I was in Bombay and I was focusing on that. And being back in a student community, getting to do things that you're supposed to do when you're 18 and that I had chosen not to do. That was what really enriched my experience. Filmmaking, you can really learn anything, to be honest. You can learn from anywhere. You don't need to go to school. It helps. It does help. It brings in a lot of work ethos. It brings in a lot of discipline. And it speeds things up when you learn, no doubt. But it was being part of an active student community and just being a no one, not having to turn up for a shoot the next day unless it's something you're shooting for class. And it was a bit like being back in high school, and that's what I liked. That was what Chinappa was to me, really, an extension of school life, which I kind of missed out on when I chose a different path.
Your short film Sarak Chhap premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. So, what was the experience like for you as a director? And have you really gone out now? There's been so much of, it's India has really like stood out this time at the festival. So, when did Sarak Chhap happen? And did you receive the kind of glory in this time that so many actors have received?
Well, Sarak Chhap was actually my master's thesis film, and obviously we were all taking it to places, and I was very lucky to get to go to Cannes with it. And again, it was a bit surreal. It's for 15 days you're airdropped into what feels like a make-believe world, and it was interesting. It was very interesting. I really don't know what more to say about that. I can't say it changed my life. I can't say any of that. But because my filmmaking journey pretty much started and ended with Sarak Chhap, as I realized that I'm really not that great at the visual media as I am with words. But it was an experience. It was an experience of a lifetime. I don't know how
Don't
to
say that.
quantify that.
Don't say that. Maybe you can just work on another film again and you realize that you're probably very, very good at it. Now you have started farming.
Well,
Tell
let's
me,
see.
Anvita. So many ships. How? Why?
I guess I'm just trying to find out what it is that I'm supposed to do in this life. Aren't we all?
Yeah. Amazing.
But no, seriously, what it was that Mumbai really wasn't working for me as a city, not as an industry, as a city. I was working on the screenwriting side. I was teaming up with a lot of people. I was part of NFTC Screenwriters Lab and whatnot. But the city takes a toll on you, ultimately. It's lovely when you're 18 and you're living on your own for the very first time. But as you age, you start realizing certain things. Like, you don't want to step out of the house and step into dog poop. That's not the kind of life I want to live. I know there's a better life out there, and you got one life. You have to do what makes your life worth it, worth living for yourself. And my parents had already bought an organic farm here in Mysore and for their retirement. And they were starting to settle down here. My mom was already here for a few years by then. And by the time I was in my mid-20s, I did feel that if I don't reach the point of no return by the time I'm 30, I'm moving to Mysore. I'm choosing a better quality of life rather than the rat race, so to speak. So it so ended up that I ended up not waiting till I'm 30. I moved in when I was 29 itself. I just felt right. And this is a much better life. There is something to working with the soil. There's a, I say this word a lot, and I'm at the risk of saying it a bit too much, but there's something very holistic about it. And
Very
you
healing.
can't, very healing, absolutely healing. So that there are things that you can't express in words. You can, but it falls short. And working with the soil is one of those things. There are days when I get up and I don't feel like anything is right. And if I just go to the farm, just observing, even if a certain plant is not doing well, just trying to understand what's going wrong. Try to fix it. Do what you can. Sometimes there's nothing you can do, but at least just doing what you can in that moment and learning through that is very healing.
So, Anvita, whatever that I am talking to you, it's so, it touches my soul in so many levels because there's been such a journey. And
Yeah.
obviously, you're very, very young. What has love life been like for you? Because women with so much of self awareness and who are into an inward journey for themselves, that, of leaving really the glamour industry and then settling into something that is so much more quiet. And Mysore is this beautiful little small town that I really, really like. What has it been like? Do people get intimidated when they meet you? Do you find it difficult to make friends? Do you have difficulty in navigating, your love life? So, what is it like? Tell me.
Well, I did get married 3 years ago, so I not exactly navigating my love life in that sense anymore.
Okay.
But Mysore
Okay.
turns out to be a very cosmopolitan city. And there's a
Okay.
certain open-mindedness over here that I've not even found in Mumbai. It's a very surprising place. You find people from every walk of life. It's cosmopolitan, as in very international as well. You find people from every part of the world for some reason, and for some reason seems to be the place where everyone decides to come and live a better quality of life and get in touch with nature. The number of organic farms
It is a
sprouting up
slow life
here
for
are
sure.
unprecedented. It's not a slow life. It's a different life. I have not been this busy
Yeah.
ever in
It's
my life.
lovely. Yeah.
Even
It's
though it's
beautiful. I love
in our
Mysore.
day. You've been to Mysore?
Oh, yeah, many times. I just love the place. I love the way the roads are built. I love the
Yeah,
little cafes now that's opened up. I just love the fact that, you know what, you don't have honking traffic right onto your face. You have,
exactly.
I just love that entire quiet that you find, and yet you find everything that you would want in a city. So, and I also think that there's a lot
Exactly.
of, cultural, events that happen there. And of course, it is the yoga center.
True.
And so, like you rightly said, that there are people from all across the world that you can meet. And there's a student community there. So,
There
yeah,
is.
it's a beautiful place. I mean, even me, I'm looking at really wanting to eventually just write because I love writing just like you.
Yeah.
And I think any place that doesn't have doesn't have this clock all the time, or let's just say
Yeah.
the pressure cooker syndrome. Maybe we both have coined a word today called the pressure cooker syndrome that everybody's suffering from. And yeah, that is really good
True.
quality of life, right, Anvita?
It is. It is absolutely. And a place like Mysore really enables you in leading that.
What message would you like to share with our listeners, especially those wanting to pursue passion, their passion in the arts and entertainment industry? What is it that you'd like to tell them?
I would not like to restrict it to the arts and entertainment industry because dreams are dreams. Passion is passion. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. But again, it's hard to say what specific message because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person. For example, if you take a Van Gogh, it worked for him that he just wanted to put his art out as he wanted to create as much as possible. And he was okay to a certain extent with only selling one painting in his entire life. That might not work for someone else. So it depends on what you really want. Sometimes we tend to overgeneralize our dreams in such a way that, oh, I want to paint. I want to do, I want to write. We don't look at what else we want from life. Sometimes your passion just needs to be a pathway to what you actually want in life. Sometimes it needs to be your life, your entire life in itself. It needs to engulf you. Sometimes it's just a way of taking you to another crossroads and you got to choose another path. But you have to understand, you have to realize what it is that you want in life ultimately. Is your passion a path for you to get recognized? Or is it something that can theoretically engulf your entire life, even if you don't get recognized? What do you want? And that's something we don't differentiate. We just look at, oh, I want to write. I want to farm. I want to, I don't know, be an IAS officer. What is it you want to do through that? We don't answer that. And that's a very important question. And it's not an easy question to answer. Sometimes it takes years and
Very
years and years
difficult.
of going down a certain path to realize that.
One
It's
has to
extremely
really
difficult.
go inside to answer those questions, and that going inside is one of the toughest
Absolutely.
to do. Outwardly one can appear to
It
be
is.
strong, one can appear to be whatever, but inward is a very, very, it requires
A
one to
whole.
be so evolved, through life experiences.
Yeah.
So yeah, amazing, Anvita, and thank you so much for being on today's episode. And we wish you all the best and with your farming, and we hope that you start many more things that reaches your heart. And I'm sure quite a few of our listeners who's probably had a crush on you will feel very sad to know that you're already taken and married. And here's wishing you lots and lots of luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me be part of this.